In 1970, Andy finds himself in a union isolation facility. In a separate room, a young girl with pink hair sits, an hourglass in the center of her space. They exchange glances through a glass barrier, and Andy uses his own blood to wish her a happy birthday. Fast forward to the present, and the same pink-haired girl is in outer space, looking down on a boat with satisfaction. It becomes evident that she is the girl from the past. Back on Earth, Andy, aboard a heavily upgraded ship, is confident about reaching Russia quickly. He reassures Fuuko, his companion, who is anxious after being warned by Shen that they would be hunted relentlessly. Just as she expresses her concerns, alarms blare and missiles rain down on them. Despite the imminent danger, Andy remains calm, mocking their attackers' poor aim and relying on Fuuko's unluck to turn the tide in their favor. Though Fuuko tries to explain that her unluck isn't something that can be controlled, Andy counters that it's all about how they use it. As the battle intensifies, Andy demonstrates his own ability, Undead, by cutting off his arm, allowing it to regenerate and form a powerful weapon that destroys their attacker. He reminds Fuuko of Shen's instructions that to join the Union, they must kill the person bearing the emblem. Andy theorizes that the emblem might be worn by one of three people: the maker of an indestructible katana, an engineer who experimented on him 50 years ago, or a woman who trapped him in an invisible barrier, a woman he remembers well. Fuuko is amazed by the strength and determination Andy displays, especially when he warns her about the formidable woman with the barrier ability. Despite his own immortality, Andy admits that facing her could be dangerous. However, Andy is undeterred, vowing to reach their goal no matter what. As they continue, Fuuko worries about Andy's reckless confidence, but he remains focused, even as another fighter jet approaches. As they fight their way forward, the narrative shifts to space, where the pink-haired girl watches over them, revealing her deep connection to Andy. She launches a powerful attack from her space station, but is confident that Andy will survive, as he always has. Back on Earth, Andy's ship is destroyed, and he quickly rescues an unconscious Fuuko from the wreckage, demonstrating his medical knowledge by performing CPR and using his regenerative abilities to save her life. Fuuko wakes up, only to find herself caught in another one of Andy's experiments to control her unluck. Despite her embarrassment and protests, Andy presses on, hypothesizing that her unluck is tied to her emotional connection. He theorizes that by triggering unluck through objects of great personal value to her, they can harness it as a powerful weapon. His theory is proven correct when her unluck causes an oil tank in the ocean to explode, giving them the edge they need. As they continue their journey, Andy's enthusiasm never wavers, even when their stolen jet self-destructs, forcing them to eject. Using a technique from his mercenary days, Andy successfully lands them safely, much to Fuuko's disgust at the sound of his breaking bones. They find themselves near Lake Baikal, the world's deepest freshwater lake, where Andy expects to encounter their next target. Fuuko is mesmerized by the lake's beauty, but she can't shake her fear of what lies ahead. Andy, ever the optimist, leaves Fuuko to explore while he tracks down old war buddies for help. Fuuko, hesitant and shy, soon encounters a friendly Russian girl who invites her to paint by the lake. Despite her initial reluctance, Fuuko enjoys the experience, reflecting on how much she has changed since meeting Andy. The girl's kindness and enthusiasm touches Fuuko, but as they paint, the mood shifts. The girl suddenly reveals her true nature, hinting at an immense power as she manipulates the lake water. Andy reappears, confirming that the girl is Gina, the powerful barrier user from his past. Gina, who harbors deep feelings for Andy, effortlessly deflects his attacks and prepares to engage them both in battle. She warns that defeating her won't be easy, and that they'll have to change her first if they hope to succeed. The scene shifts to Shen, deep in thought about his recent battle with Undead, which he found exhilarating. His disciple arrives to refocus him, reminding Shen that Gina is about to face Undead. Shen, now familiar with the pair, assures his disciple that they will overcome this great challenge. Near the lake, Fuuko mounts Andy, and they rush towards Gina, who excitedly addresses Andy as Daddy, after 40 years apart. Andy, without hesitation, removes his sword and attempts to attack her, using his blood as a weapon. However, his attack is ineffective, and Gina is taken aback that after all these years, violence is all he has to offer. Fuuko asks Gina if she was the one who captured Andy 50 years ago, and Gina proudly confirms, explaining that she not only caught him but also supervised his captivity. Fuuko is shocked by their seemingly identical ages, but Gina is flattered. However, Andy quickly crushes her pride by pointing out that Gina was only 16 when she caught him, making her 66 years old now. Gina boasts about the organization's anti-aging technology, but Andy isn't interested and attempts another attack. Gina, using her ability, forces Andy to cut off his own face. Gina, undeterred, confesses that she was the first to fall in love with Andy. She recounts their story. She was the hunter and he was the hunted. After capturing him, she apologized, but Andy accepted his defeat with grace and even promised a rematch once he escaped. She idolized him, but when Andy finally broke free 10 years later, he disappeared without a word, vanishing for 40 years until he resurfaced after meeting Fuuko. Andy, tired of listening, tries to silence Gina with grenades, but she emerges unscathed. She expresses her frustration that Shen met Undead before she did, though she is grateful he brought Void, whose death opened up a seat for Andy on the team. Andy, ignoring her words, tosses a flashbang and charges at her, but Gina easily deflects his attack, forcing him to amputate his own leg to avoid a deadly strike. Fuuko suggests retreating, but Andy insists he's gathering intel. Gina solidifies the lake and telekinetically lifts it. She creates invisible barriers and stairs, demonstrating her ability to harden objects. Andy deduces that if her power only hardens things, his sword should be able to cut through it, but his attempts are thwarted. Gina, meanwhile, uses her spinning hat to slice Andy in half. Despite the injury, Andy notices something about her hat and realizes it's part of her power. Gina, annoyed by Fuuko's closeness to Andy, recalls that she was the one who attacked them with space projectiles earlier. She restrains Andy and taunts Fuuko, explaining that she won't be able to fulfill her quota with Fuuko in the way. Andy interrupts, declaring that Fuuko is his, and he won't let her die until he does. Gina, determined to claim Andy for herself, declares she will take his head like she did 50 years ago. Andy, realizing the nature of her power, shoves a grenade in his mouth and uses his parts bullet attack on his own head, launching it sky high. He regenerates instantly, only to blow himself up again, showering blood everywhere. This bizarre tactic reveals to Andy that Gina's ability is called Unchanged, which negates changes in form. Fuuko catches Andy's severed head, and he explains his discovery, but Gina insists he can't do anything about it. Andy counters that he isn't alone and regenerates his body inside Fuuko's shirt. He figures out that Gina's giant hands are formed by fixing the air in place, and she admits that once they grasp something, it can't escape. Andy, though, is undeterred. He instructs Fuuko to cover as much surface area as possible, but this enrages Gina, who sees it as unladylike behavior. She accuses Fuuko of seducing Andy and warns that Fuuko won't maintain her figure for long, unlike Gina with her unchanging appearance. However, Andy exposes Gina's lie, revealing that her power doesn't work on living organisms, and she's merely using makeup to appear younger. Gina, losing her composure, attacks Andy again, slicing off his legs. But this doesn't faze him, as he uses his dismemberment to move around more effectively. Andy realizes that Gina's invisible arms need time to generate, and the real challenge is breaking through her invincible air barrier. Fuuko, noticing Andy's strategic positioning, suggests that she has realized something about Gina's power. Gina, visibly upset, approaches them at a speed walk, but Andy thanks Fuuko for helping him figure out how to get to Gina. Gina, frustrated, reveals a spacecraft that's been hidden the entire time. She explains that the organization is investigating a UMA, unidentified mysterious animal, and that she's been scanning the lake, reluctantly fulfilling her quota. Gina declares that the prey replacing the UMA will be Fuuko, and vows to stay in the organization forever so she can chase Andy eternally. She launches a ferocious attack, seriously injuring Andy, but he agrees with her twisted logic. To be born and to die, the greatest forms of change, are what he finds most thrilling. Andy removes his leg to activate his unique ability, insisting that any death would be his, not Fuuko's, as if trying to anger her. He vows to keep Fuuko alive, win her heart repeatedly, and eventually change his mortality after they solidify their bond. Gina cautions that he's overly optimistic, warning that joining the organization is a painful, empty experience that Fuuko might not survive. During a battle, Andy dodges a deadly attack and reveals to Fuuko that there's a small gap in the barrier beneath Gina. He believes he can exploit it to defeat her using the power he has been building up. Although the gap is tiny, just enough for his head, he plans to use it. He launches his sword, slicing off his hand in the process, and shocks Gina when the sword slides under her barrier. The pair work together to lift the gap, and Fuuko hurls Andy's head through it. Inside Gina's barrier, Andy knows that the unluck ability that kills him will now affect her. Since the barrier is made of air, light passes through, meaning the unluck will likely be light-based and enormous due to his prolonged contact with Fuuko. Suddenly, a massive death beam from a floating ship is activated, causing massive destruction and the collapse of a floating body of water. Fuuko rushes to find Andy and Gina, discovering Gina severely injured. Andy, coldly planning to finish her, is stopped by Fuuko's shock. Gina, accepting her fate, confesses she was ready for the worst, realizing during the battle that she desired change. Despite her cruel actions for the Union, nothing in the world or herself ever changed. She admits Fuuko's painting made her see beauty she never imagined. As her condition worsens, she urges them to leave as the anti-aging effect wears off, and she doesn't want to be seen in her deteriorated state. Andy, ignoring her protests, cradles Gina, assuring her that a few wrinkles don't diminish her beauty. They share a tender moment, holding each other close, as she tries to hide her embarrassment. After the devastating loss of Gina, Andy and Fuuko grapple with their grief and reflection. Andy reveals that Gina, despite her tough exterior, had always hinted at a desire for death. She often confessed her inner struggles and hesitation about taking lives, suggesting that she felt she might be better off dead. Andy, in retrospect, realizes Gina was serious about her dark thoughts, and thanks Fuuko for granting her wish. Fuuko, still deeply affected, insists that they must strive to prevent others from suffering as Gina did. She is determined to reform the Union, and Andy agrees to assist, hoping that their efforts will also win Fuuko's affection. As they prepare to pay tribute to Gina, a terrifying creature emerges from a portal, interrupting their moment of solemnity. This creature, arriving earlier than expected, transports them directly to the Union's meeting room. Fuuko is horrified to see Andy chewing on his own fingers, which he casually explains as a form of greeting. Andy plans to use his finger bullets to eliminate everyone in the room, but the Union members remain unfazed. The situation escalates when Tatiana, a robot with a furious demeanor, attacks Andy, blaming him for Gina's death. Despite her rage, Billy, another Union member, attempts to calm her, reminding her that infighting is forbidden. During the chaos, Tatiana's furious attack damages her own hand, which she quickly repairs. Yuiz, a Union member, intervenes and uses her abilities to force Tatiana to lower her weapon, although it is clear that she is manipulating her actions. Andy, who had inadvertently attacked Fuuko in the melee, apologizes but explains that the confrontation provided them with valuable information. They now face a new challenge, the Apocalypse Book, which presents 6 daunting quests they must undertake. Quests are as follows: capturing Burn to earn an additional 11th seat, capturing UMA Eats for the location of the Negator Unburn, neutralizing the UMA language for the unification of all world languages, capturing Negator Unseen for the location of UMA Call, capturing UMA Past for the location of Artifact Rebellion, and capturing UMA Spoil for the location of Negator Unrepair. The deadline to complete these quests is August 31st, with failure resulting in a severe penalty, a new UMA added to the Union's ranks. Fuuko is overwhelmed by the complexity of the tasks, but Andy advises her to focus on absorbing as much information as possible. Nico, a Union member, assesses the quests and concludes that the first 3 are feasible. He recommends prioritizing Burn for its valuable reward and suggests abandoning the quest for Spoil due to insufficient information. Uiz explains that the Apocalypse Book, the first artifact discovered on Earth, imposes challenging tasks on Union members. Success brings rewards, while failure incurs penalties. The Union's ultimate goal is to gain enough power to confront the god on the other side of the book, who enforces these rules. Fuuko is discouraged and questions whether the dangerous quests are worthwhile, especially since even Gina felt that nothing changed. Yuiz reveals that new rules and penalties are imposed on Earth every 3 months, and the Union's strength is essential to manage these changes. Frustrated with the lengthy discussion, Andy approaches the book and demands to know which quest is the most difficult. Shen, amused, observes as the book reveals that the most challenging quest is capturing spoil. Unfazed, Andy selects Fuuko and Shen as his team for this quest, leaving Shen astonished. Meanwhile, Mui, a subordinate, helps Fuuko don her uniform. Mui is excited about Fuuko's promotion but cannot join the quests herself due to her lack of an emblem. Shen explains the importance of the uniform, which provides access to public services and is essential for participating in quests. Andy, uninterested in the details, prefers to use his helicopter for travel. An alarm interrupts their preparations. A prisoner has escaped and taken over a member of personnel. The prisoner, a UMA named Clothes, merges with its host and wreaks havoc. Andy neutralizes it with a headbutt, but the UMA soon attaches itself to Mui. Shen realizes that Mui's clothing has changed, but cannot restrain the UMA due to his ability's limitations. Fuuko decides to intervene and uses her Unluck ability to stop the UMA from attacking Mui. The UMA then turns its attention to Fuuko, but Andy comes to her rescue. Mui, now freed, apologizes for her earlier attacks and expresses gratitude. The UMA begins to attack Andy, but is displeased with his desire for sturdy regenerative clothes. It warns that Andy will become its puppet. He continues to insult it. As the UMA attacks, Fuuko realizes that her Unluck ability hasn't activated yet. Andy's body disintegrates but quickly regenerates, prompting him to name the UMA Clothy. Clothy, upset with its perceived inadequacies, struggles to control Andy. Despite Shen's amazement at Andy's ability to tame the UMA, he is concerned about the slow regeneration speed. In a surprising twist, it is announced that Andy has captured the UMA, earning points and promoting him to 9th place in the Union. Reports emerge of a rotting corpse in New York, hinting at a connection to UMA spoil. Andy, excited to leave Japan, looks forward to better burgers abroad, while Fuuko remains shocked by the differences in global cuisine. After several days of travel in Nevada, USA, Andy decided to abandon his helicopter in favor of driving. As they contemplated their next move, Andy considered heading to Las Vegas for a party. However, Fuuko reminded him of their mission. A rotting corpse had been sighted on the streets of New York, leading to a mass memory wipe for all witnesses. The corpse was traced back to a rural town called Longing. At that moment, Shen appeared with his unusually long neck and explained that Longing was indeed a remote area in the U.S. He had cleverly attached himself to their truck some time ago, but had grown lonely. Fuuko, shocked by Shen's sudden appearance, invited him inside, which moved him to tears. Shen revealed that their target, spoil, was linked to the rotting corpse. He defined spoil as something that decays or rots, and while he was unsure why the corpse traveled 4,000 kilometers to New York, he was confident that spoil and his homemade zombies would be in Longing. Fuuko's fear heightened when Shen played an audio clip from their investigators, who had set up a barricade in Longing. The clip recorded the investigators' frantic encounter with the undead, their desperate attempts to fight back, and their eventual screams of agony as they were overwhelmed. The horrifying clip ended abruptly, leaving Fuuko visibly shaken. Shen, seeking Undead's opinion, was told that he would need to go all out to confront this enemy. Despite the grim news, Andy remained unfazed. That night, Shen noticed Fuuko struggling to sleep and reassured her that he and Andy would handle spoil. Fuuko, however, expressed her desire to help not just for Gina's cause, but also for the reward of locating the UMA known as Unrepair. She hoped that Unrepair might provide a clue to help Andy finally die, something he had always wanted. Shen, initially coerced by Andy to join the mission, revealed he also hoped to see the legendary figure referred to as Victor, God of Victory. The next day, they arrived in Longing, which had been barricaded. Shen and Fuuko agreed to proceed with caution, but Andy noticed a wall blocking their path and decided to use a rocket launcher to create an entrance. This action, however, attracted a horde of zombies. Shen pointed out that the wall was meant to contain them. And with the zombies now pouring in, Andy closed the truck's window and asked if the zombies could be reverted to human form. Shen confirmed that it was impossible for them to become human again, exciting Andy as he prepared for battle. Andy told Fuuko to brace herself. Using Shen's immense power, he launched himself into the midst of the zombie horde. slicing off some of his own limbs in the process. He landed at the center of the zombies, declaring his intent to finish them off. He then announced that if any zombies retained enough of their human brains to identify their attacker, they should show themselves. As he spun at incredible speeds, slicing off the tops of zombies, Andy noticed one zombie ducking down, pleased to see that not everyone had been completely spoiled. Andy humorously brought the surviving zombie to the truck, intending to use it to lead them to spoil. Despite Fuuko's eagerness to join, Shen advised proceeding with caution. Shen also questioned Andy's experience fighting a UMA, explaining that they are different from negators and often impose rules on anyone within their range. Shen's ability activates from a distance, while Fuuko's requires physical contact. He warned that Spoil's ability might already be active, imposing a rule that curses anyone who enters its range with zombification once the time limit expires. Andy, despite the dire warning, was unconcerned. His countdown reached 0, and his arm began to rot, though he managed to regenerate it only for it to rot again immediately. Shen identified this as a continuous effect type of curse. Andy's face also began to spoil. It became clear that Spoil cursed anyone who entered longing, with the curse resulting in zombification once the time limit expired. With their only lead being a brainless zombie, the situation seemed bleak. Unexpectedly, Andy was able to understand the zombie, who wanted something in exchange for information. Andy shared this with his team, but then shocked them by proposing to marry the zombie, believing his half-zombie nature allowed him to communicate with her. He asked Fuuko if she considered it cheating, willing to turn down the proposal if she did. Shen was incredulous at the bizarre situation and warned that it could be a trap, but Fuuko encouraged Andy to go through with it. Andy proceeded to find a wedding dress for his zombie bride, much to Shen's dismay. Before leaving, Shen reminded Andy that their objective was to capture Spoil, and killing it would result in failure. As Fuuko noticed a boy emerging from the ground, Shen yelled at Andy to contact them when he found Spoil. Andy ignored him. Fuuko followed the boy, who was not zombified but showed signs of being cursed. Shen and Fuuko were also cursed when they approached the boy. The boy revealed that his entire group was cursed and that he had more digits on his countdown timer than Andy. He believed outsiders were there to end their lives. Despite Fuuko's attempts to reassure him, she got cursed when trying to save him. Shen also got cursed, stepping forward intentionally. At the zombie wedding, Andy complimented his bride, who expressed her dream of wearing a wedding dress before dying. She asked Andy to put an end to Spoil. Despite the orders to capture Spoil, Andy decided to honor his bride's wish. He sliced through a statue that came alive as a giant monster, revealing itself as Spoil. Andy, unharmed, attacked the monster with a bell, summoning the zombies to avenge their plight. As the zombies swarmed, Andy prepared to finish the quest, holding a smile for his bride. In the underground refuge, Fuuko meets Ken, the oldest in his group, who feels a heavy responsibility to protect his younger friends. She explains that they're from the Union and are there to help. Ken recounts the terrifying events from a week ago. A dark sphere appeared in the city, accompanied by a floating head that began spreading chaos. This entity caused numbers to appear on everyone's stomachs, transforming them into zombies. Ken's teacher, who was engaged to Andy, took the children underground to keep them safe. Although infected, she told them not to worry, vowing she wouldn't die until she found a perfect person to walk her down the aisle. She urged the children to remember their dreams before succumbing to her fate. Ken, deeply traumatized, checks on Mai, a young girl who is crying as her countdown nears 0. He reassures her, reminding her of her dream to become a florist and sell sunflowers, which were also loved by their teacher. Mai's countdown surprisingly extends, leading Ken to seek Fuuko's help. Fuuko promises assistance, but they hear a commotion above. Shen, who has squeezed his way through a door to observe, sees the zombified humans fighting alongside Andy. Although the zombies aren't contributing much, Andy trusts Shen with the safety of his bride, still hoping for the wedding to proceed. The children, initially hopeful that their teacher has returned, are heartbroken when they realize she is now zombified. Mai wants to bandage her teacher's arm, and Fuuko is taken aback when the zombified teacher thanks her. A zombie bumping into Fuuko transfers the curse to her, causing Andy to devise a new strategy. He orders all zombies to touch Fuuko, intending to turn them into bombs to cause more damage. Fuuko, initially resistant due to the sadness of the situation, ultimately accepts the teacher's willingness to sacrifice herself and touches her. Ken tries to intervene, but Shen uses his power to stop him. Fuuko warns of an impending unluck event, and Andy praises her as the perfect bride for him. As the teacher charges towards Spoil, the monster with a determination to bring sunflowers to her teacher, Spoil falls victim to the unluck. It trips and crashes into a gunpowder shop, causing a massive explosion and burning the teacher's wedding dress. Ken cries out for his teacher, but the battle is far from over. Spoil is weakening, and Andy rallies everyone to focus on defeating the monster. Fuuko continues to apply her unluck to the zombies, creating a chaotic stampede. Shen has the children wait in their safe spot while Fuuko works tirelessly, and the plan seems effective as Spoil gets overwhelmed by bad luck. However, Shen and Fuuko are both cursed, and they need to resolve the issue quickly. Andy is frustrated, but Fuuko begs him not to blame Shen, acknowledging it was her fault for rushing. With time running out, Spoil begins inhaling everything in the city, and the heroes face imminent danger. Shen, using his abilities, helps them escape, but many zombies are consumed. Spoil transforms into an even more grotesque form, and Andy explains that Spoil's power can spoil organic matter, and that the timer must reach 0 for living things to be affected. Spoil's new form uses a powerful beam that destroys everything in its path, including the Statue of Liberty. Andy realizes Spoil is targeting them with this attack, but the beam's effectiveness depends on its precision. Back at headquarters, Mui warns that Spoil's laser attack is devastating and must be avoided at all costs. Spoil is bewildered by the resistance, believing it is merely returning the Earth to its natural state, and expects gratitude. As Spoil attacks with increasing speed, it hits both Andy and Shen. Andy loses an arm to prevent spoiling, while Shen barely manages to remove his glove. Andy deduces that the attack only affects individual parts, and a direct hit means instant defeat. He decides to end the fight quickly, but is shocked when he starts to spoil just by being near Spoil. Spoil knocks Andy out of the air, and Andy realizes that living things spoil just by proximity. Spoil, frustrated by Andy's resilience, shifts its focus to Fuuko and Shen, taunting them with its psychopathic rhetoric. Shen, desperate, decides to run, but Spoil claims that running is pointless since the timer will remain constant. Spoil elaborates on its philosophy of bringing change through decay, which it believes is a necessary rule. Fuuko counters Spoil's ideology by stating that humans live with their bodies to fulfill their dreams, and she will not let Spoil's rules destroy that. She declares her dream to become a normal girl and live her life fully, regardless of Spoil's attempts to spoil her. This declaration raises her countdown significantly, confusing Spoil. With renewed determination, Fuuko rushes to Andy, who admires her bravery. Shen returns with his staff, delivering a powerful blow to Spoil's head, and reveals his own dream of becoming the greatest. His number climbs dramatically, signaling a shift in the battle's momentum. In a tense confrontation, Shen delivers a powerful blow to Spoil using his Neo-Kinko staff, a weapon capable of extending and contracting at will. Andy cautions Shen about Spoil's unique ability to spoil anything within its proximity, but notes that Spoil's power diminishes when it extends its head outside its field. Shen realizes this through his own staff, which he only discovered how to use thanks to Andy's guidance. As Shen closes in on Spoil, the creature attempts to evade the attack but finds itself unable to escape due to Shen's ability to control its actions. Shen's power forces Spoil to act against its will, a result of his ability that negates any conscious thought from his target. However, activating this ability requires Shen to have a certain fondness for the target, adding a layer of complexity to the situation. Despite this, Andy is still uncertain how to capture giants like Spoil. Shen informs Andy that Spoil contains a core within its body, but warns that any living being close to it will be spoiled by bacteria present in the air. To counter this, Andy proposes reducing the moisture around Spoil by creating an explosion. Fuuko, whose bad luck is unpredictable, inadvertently causes Andy to fall through a crack in the ground during the attempt. Meanwhile, Spoil creates a dust cloud to obscure Shen's vision, complicating their strategy. Fuuko suggests using the Union spaceship to take Spoil to space, where the lack of moisture would prevent further spoiling. Despite the risks, Shen agrees to this plan and intends to lift both Spoil and Andy into space. Andy, who has endured significant damage, agrees to the plan but sets conditions for Shen. Shen's staff extends, launching Andy and Spoil into space. Fuuko is surprised to see Andy remove a crucial memory card from his head, which could make him unstable. But Shen is eager to witness Andy's full potential. In space, Spoil, now with increased strength and abilities, attacks Andy with a disintegration laser. Andy, now with black hair, shows remarkable regeneration, which astonishes Spoil. Andy employs a new technique called division bullets, multiplying his attacks and overwhelming Spoil. The battle ends swiftly as Andy's clones defeat Spoil, with Andy sending Spoil's head back to Earth. Back on Earth, Shen and Fuuko prepare for the aftermath, while Shen assigns Ken to protect the children. Shen ensures that Fuuko and the others are safe, as Andy's presence is crucial. When Spoil's core crashes back to Earth, Shen and Fuuko are concerned about the impact on Andy's condition. Shen reveals that Andy's transformation is more profound than expected, revealing him as Victor, a god of victory who possesses extraordinary strength and has an unsettling control over his abilities. Victor, now aware of Fuuko's unluck, dismisses it as ineffective against him, knowing it fluctuates based on his personal feelings. He reveals that he has used Andy's knowledge to his advantage and threatens to cause despair by targeting Fuuko. Fuuko tries to appeal to Andy, reminding him of their plans and promises. However, Victor, with his enhanced strength, becomes increasingly aggressive. Shen realizes that humans have immense potential and acknowledges that although he cannot defeat Victor alone, he has summoned other Union members to assist. Union members, while initially facing difficulties against Victor's powerful attacks, eventually gain the upper hand. Nico, a member of the Union, reveals his understanding of Victor's regeneration abilities and exploits a weakness by burning the severed sections of Victor's body. Victor, unfazed, demonstrates his ability to regenerate from any part of his body and switches his consciousness to his fingers when his main body is destroyed. He mocks his opponents, revealing that his regeneration is unparalleled and expressing excitement for the challenge they present. As the battle intensifies, the Union members prepare for a fierce fight against Victor, who remains confident and eager for the battle ahead. The fight erupts immediately as Uis launches an attack on Victor, but his strength proves formidable. Despite her efforts, she manages to slice him in half and seizes the opportunity to command Top to evacuate Fuuko and the injured Shen. Although Victor is severely outnumbered, he counters by using division bullets to create numerous clones of himself. Top follows orders and transports Fuuko and Shen to safety. Grateful but curious, Fuuko thanks Top, who brushes off the gratitude, explaining that they are now part of the same team. Despite this, Fuuko remains thankful and wonders why Top seems to be in constant motion. Top reveals that their chance to stop Victor previously was due to Old Lady Gina's assistance, and expresses doubts about their current plan. Fuuko, however, is determined to get back to Andy and requests Shen's brain card. Shen, mindful of Andy's possible discontent, provides Fuuko with a gun for protection and expresses concern for her safety. Impressed by Shen's faith in her, Fuuko takes the card and heads back into the fray. Top, still skeptical, urges Shen to convince her otherwise, but Shen defends Fuuko's determination, acknowledging her resilience. Realizing Fuuko is resolute, Top decides to join her. Their interaction reveals their contrasting perspectives, with Fuuko critiquing Top for his age while Top questions her timing. Back on the battlefield, the chaos intensifies. Victors are being destroyed, but Victor discovers the formidable durability of Ison and the powerful abilities of the others fighting alongside him. Focus shifts to Uis, wielding a flaming sword, which prompts Victor to recognize the influence of the burn. Top and Fuuko return to a battlefield overrun by Victors. Fuuko identifies the real Andy by his distinctive katana and remnants of clothing. She decides to confront Victor directly, taking everyone by surprise when she leaps onto him, engaging in a daring strategy. Fuuko hopes that staying attached to Victor will eventually weaken him enough to reinsert the brain card. Uis suggests that briefly restoring Andy's personality might make this plan work, but Fuuko is uncertain about the timing. Victor, already engaged in fierce combat, is further provoked by Ui's orders to protect Fuuko and defeat the clones. Shen returns with his staff, and the Union members struggle to defend Fuuko while managing the chaos of the battle. Fuuko calls out to Andy despite Victor's attempts to shoot her. Top tries to support Fuuko but is hit, and Victor mocks their efforts. Fuuko, reflecting on her relationship with Andy, devises a plan to defeat Victor by targeting a unique scar on his forehead, believing it holds the key to restoring Andy. Fuuko shoots Victor through the scar and attempts to retrieve Andy by jamming her thumb into the wound, hoping to trigger a significant stroke of unluck. As Victor's clones disappear, Andy responds to Fuuko's plea, and their brief but tender moment is marked by Andy's kiss. Fuuko, shyly dismissing the incident, warns onlookers of the impending unluck. Shen, using his ability, reveals that the distance requirement was a lie. He only needed to see Victor to act. The scene culminates with meteors crashing down on Victor, who is overwhelmed by the powerful unluck. The town is devastated, leaving a massive crater. Top searches for Fuuko, who is found making her way into the crater. Despite the danger of flooding, Fuuko reaches Andy and tries to return the card to him. Victor acknowledges her bravery as she successfully reinserts the card, although the process seems initially unsuccessful. Eventually, Fuuko awakens to find Andy by her side, who has read all volumes of her favorite manga. Andy's return brings relief and joy to Fuuko, who is initially upset by the danger he faced. Andy explains that her voice was his only comfort while he was trapped and thanks her sincerely. The emotional moment is further highlighted by Andy's use of Fuuko's name for the first time. Andy, now back to normal, emphasizes that their meeting is imminent. Fuuko, though emotional, runs off to warn others about the unluck. The reunion between Andy and Fuuko is a poignant moment amidst the chaos. Andy reveals a new circular robot and drawings from orphans cared for by the Union. They discuss their future and reflect on their past struggles, with Andy acknowledging his own role in their journey, expressing confidence that their powerful emotions will have a lasting impact. In a dimly lit room, a man is tied to a chair, severely injured and not visible due to his unique ability. The observer, seated across from him, reveals that the bound man is unseen, a negator with a self-targeting, compulsory activation power. When Unseen closes his eyes, everything he perceives as his property becomes invisible. However, the blood seeping from his stomach remains conspicuously visible. The observer, wearing a suit, explains that he has implanted a homing device in Unseen's body to prevent him from escaping. He offers Unseen a choice: join his group and receive a deactivation of his ability, or suffer an unhealed wound until the suit wearer dies. Claiming Unseen as his property, the suit man refuses to surrender him to another group. Meanwhile, at a round table, Fuuko is stunned to learn she has been unconscious for days. Andy is unfazed, noting that someone like Fuuko, used to a sedentary lifestyle, would struggle with the recent activities. Apocalypse then announces the results of their quests. The first quest, Capturing Burn, involved participants Uiz, Billy, Tatiana, Ishin, Phil, and Top, who succeeded. Their reward is an additional 11th seat at the round table, allowing for one more negator to join. They also completed the second quest, Capturing Eat, and are given the location of Unburn, which will remain hidden from Unburn for 7 days. Apocalypse suggests they may catch Unburn if necessary, but emphasizes that capturing Burn makes this unlikely. Additionally, they successfully neutralized the UMA language quest, resulting in the unification of all world's languages into English. This change alters memories and cultures, allowing for smoother global functioning. Shen contacts Mui, who is preoccupied with her workout, and speaks to her in a language that no longer exists due to the language unification. The alteration confirms that all languages have been unified into English. The next successful quest involved capturing UMA Past, with the reward being the location of the artifact Rebellion. Quest 5, Capturing UMA Spoil, was also a success, and a new location pin for UMA Unrepair appears on the map. Fuuko is excited about Unrepair, believing they might help Andy achieve his desired death. However, Andy's lack of enthusiasm surprises her. The quest to capture Unseen, however, failed as expected. All previous attempts to gather information about Unseen ended in death. The bodies found bleeding out in a deserted area. Andy surmises that Unseen was taken by Unrepair. As a consequence, a penalty is imposed. The UMA galaxy, a massive creature of unprecedented size, is unleashed. Apocalypse introduces a new rule that the world will now believe has always existed. Uis and Fuuko are transported to the surface, where they see a gigantic rock and a seemingly ordinary scene, which Fuuko initially finds unimpressive. Uis explains that the penalty imposed by Apocalypse is always disastrous, and this time, it involves a massive galaxy and its invading aliens. The universe now includes a cluster of Earth-like planets, myths, days of the week, and extraterrestrial life forms. The newly introduced aliens, who have trained for millennia, plan to invade Earth as their home planet is deteriorating. A giant alien leader introduces himself and his race and informs them that Earth's inhabitants will be used as slaves unless they resist, in which case they will be exterminated. Uis, fearless and resolute, rejects both options, leading to a dramatic confrontation. The alien demonstrates his power with a massive attack, but is stunned when his ships begin to explode due to Uis's ability. Injustice. The alien is left bewildered and defeated, while Uis uses this moment to showcase the penalties imposed by Apocalypse and their severe implications. The 99th penalty has been enacted, and only one slot remains before the final penalty, Ragnarok, which signifies the end of all. Andy realizes that they must fill the 11th seat at the round table urgently to avoid further penalties. With the alien leader retreating and no longer a threat, the team focuses on their next objectives. Uis highlights that they now know the locations of Unburn and Unrepair due to the rewards and decides to prioritize Unrepair. Tatiana and Fuuko are assigned to the mission, with Fuuko eager to contribute, while Andy looks forward to repaying his debts. After some days, Andy and Fuuko arrive in Brazil, ready for their mission. They find themselves in a bustling mall, but Fuuko is in a state of panic. She frantically glances around, overwhelmed by the presence of celebrities. Andy, calm and composed, reassures her of his readiness. Fuuko, however, is not pleased. She scolds him for leaving her alone for so long, feeling utterly out of place and mortified by the attention she's inadvertently drawn. Her frustration quickly turns to shock when Andy reveals a sleek suit he hasn't worn in a while. To Fuuko's surprise, he looks like a celebrity himself. Andy, curious about her reaction, asks if she likes what she sees. Fuuko, flustered by his proximity, struggles to maintain her composure. Hours earlier, on an airplane, Andy and Fuuko had discussed the upcoming black market auction event. Andy was confident they'd find Unrepair there, though he was uncertain whether he would be buying or selling. He showed Fuuko the fake passes crafted by Nico, indicating that they would use these, along with the appropriate attire, to blend in and infiltrate the auction. At the shop, Fuuko was livid as Andy picked out revealing outfits for her. They argued heatedly about the choices. During their argument, Fuuko reflected on a conversation with Uis regarding the Unrepair mission. She had questioned Uis about why she was assigned to this task. Uis had explained that her decision was driven by her vision of justice. She had observed Fuuko's unluck powers during their battle with Victor, and believed that if Fuuko could control this power, they could challenge even God. Uis wanted Fuuko to work closely with Andy and develop a romantic bond with him to better harness her abilities. After selecting a dress, Fuuko and Andy took a walk. Andy playfully pesters Fuuko for a kiss similar to the one she gave Victor. Meanwhile, with Clothy's aid, Fuuko accidentally causes Andy to be hit by a truck and then attacked by a shark. Mortified, Fuuko apologizes to both Clothy and Andy on the beach. As they recover, Andy shares his thoughts about Victor and his origin. He reveals that Victor might be the original host of their body, explaining his lack of childhood memories. Andy expresses concern that Victor might regain control, and Fuuko vows to use her unluck power to help Andy reclaim their body. Suddenly, Tatiana appears, dropping in on Andy and Fuuko to discuss Ui's infiltration plan. The two are soon aboard the ship hosting the black market auction event. As they take their seats, Fuuko overhears guests discussing the consumption of UMAs they've bought. She's puzzled, conflicted about whether capturing UMAs for the Union or allowing them to be auctioned is the right course of action. Andy, resigned, explains that the UMA's fate is essentially the same either way. Fuuko ponders the types of UMAs being sold and reflects on her own situation. Andy discusses the 4 potential paths that most negators can take in life. explaining his choice to side with the Union despite his initial aversion. As Fuuko contemplates her own path, the scene shifts to a new development. Several intruders arrive, and one of them brutally murders 2 guards. The remaining intruders engage in a discussion. Tatiana informs Andy, Fuuko, and Uiz about the incident. Uiz identifies the intruders as Negator hunters, who are responsible for capturing Unseen. Unlike the Union, which seeks to eliminate God to escape the rules, the Negator hunters are driven by a desire for revenge against the world. They kill Negators they deem useless. Determined to protect Unrepair, Fuuko and Andy prepare to thwart the hunters' plans, aiming to prevent them from capturing or killing their target. Andy and Fuuko rush through the hall, determined to reach Unrepair before the Negator hunters can catch him. Meanwhile, in the auction item warehouse, a guard notices a Negator trying to flee and moves to intercept him. The Negator uses his power to momentarily freeze the guard. In a flashback, we learn that this Negator is named Chikara, who grumbles about everything being in English, causing curious glances from those around him. Suddenly, 2 men stun Chikara with tasers and decide to turn him over to the Union. In the present, Chikara is frustrated and angry about his predicament. As a guard prepares to shoot him, a Negator hunter takes down the guard, and Tristan approaches Chikara. Tristan identifies Chikara's Negator type and informs his allies that he doesn't want the Union getting their hands on him. To test Chikara's abilities, Deckard, one of Tristan's allies, aims to shoot him, hoping Chikara will activate his power in defense. As Deckard fires, Andy arrives just in time to shield Chikara from the bullet. Fuuko lands beside them and quickly checks on Chikara. Meanwhile, Andy observes the Negator hunters, evaluating their potential abilities and weaknesses. Before he can assess Tristan attacks him and reveals himself as Unrepair. Unrepair demonstrates his power to negate all healing on the wounds he inflicts and demands that Andy and Fuuko hand over Chikara so he can kill him and transfer his abilities to someone more competent. Andy attempts to strike Unrepair, declaring he will prevent Unrepair from becoming their 11th Union member. Just as Andy is about to deliver a decisive blow, Latla intervenes, protecting Unrepair. Unrepair commends Andy's technique, but dismisses him as uninterested. Instead, Unrepair extends an offer to Fuuko, expressing his disdain for Chida's weakness and his desire to form a stronger team to conquer nations. He throws a knife at Chikara, but Andy leaps in front of it, reducing its speed. Fuuko then jumps in front of Chikara, promising Andy she'll be okay and urging him to remain calm. Andy vows to defeat Unrepair, but more Yakuza guards arrive, complicating the situation. Chikara assists Andy in tending to Fuuko's wounds and tries to negotiate with the guards, hoping they will let Andy and Fuuko go. When this fails, Chikara recalls his mother's advice about showing kindness to others. Drawing on this memory, he activates his unmove ability, momentarily halting the guard's movement. He asks Andy to take Fuuko to safety, and Andy praises Chikara for his bravery. Tatiana faces off against Creed, who relentlessly fires at her, unable to comprehend why his bullets are utterly ineffective. He grudgingly compliments her armored suit for tossing a grenade in her direction. When the explosion dissipates without so much as a scratch on her, Tatiana stands unfazed. Frustrated, Creed prepares to throw more grenades, but Fang steps in just in time, preventing him from being crushed. Creed, realizing that the grenades seem to materialize out of thin air, begins to suspect that Tatiana's powers might be beyond ordinary. However, there's no time for speculation, as Fang swiftly sends her flying with a force that cracks the black metal armor Nico created for her. Tatiana, stunned, concludes that Creed and Fang possess some incredibly powerful negating abilities. Suddenly, Andy contacts her, and she refers to him as Zombie. Andy reveals that Fuuko is severely injured, the wound inflicted by Unrepair that won't heal unless he dies. They have only a few hours at most to kill Unrepair before it's too late. Visibly upset, Tatiana becomes even more enraged when Creed mocks her for losing a friend. This triggers a flashback to when Tatiana, furious over the death of Gina, destroyed Andy. The battle was halted by their leader. Tatiana, still seething with anger, demanded a rematch with the zombie. The scene shifts to Nico's combat test site, where other Union members gathered to witness the showdown. Andy, ever cautious, told Fuuko to stay back. Tatiana, however, made it clear that while others might have accepted Andy as one of them, she hadn't. She vowed revenge for Gina and launched a furious assault. Andy skillfully dodged her attacks, and Tatiana angrily pointed out how clueless he was about Gina's feelings. Oblivious to the emotions she harbored during the 40 years he was gone, Andy had trampled all over them when they met again. Cold-blooded as ever, Andy revealed that he knew Gina was in love with him but killed her anyway. This only infuriated Tatiana further, and she refused to forgive him. Despite her rage, Andy noticed that Tatiana's attacks were getting dangerously close to hitting Fuuko. In a moment of shock, Tatiana witnessed Andy rescuing Fuuko from a potentially fatal blow. She couldn't believe that he had protected her, realizing that if he hadn't, she would have killed Fuuko. Nico, attempting to calm her down, explained that the next quest would reveal whether they were worthy of being in the organization. He emphasized that Gina wouldn't have wanted them to fight each other. But Andy, ever the opportunist, saw this as the perfect moment to land a counterattack. Everyone was stunned as Andy was knocked back by Tatiana's scream, which echoed through her suit, triggered by the unwanted touch. A sudden warning from Tatiana's suit announced that the obligatory release of the UT area would commence in 3 minutes. Nico frantically ordered Andy to get Fuuko out of there, warning that if he didn't, she would surely die. He revealed that Tatiana's armor was not meant to protect her, but to restrain her terrifying ability, which once released, could wipe out an entire town. Nico issued an emergency announcement to the entire organization, initiating the emergency relocation of UMA and artifact storage to level 4. As chaos ensued, those on floors 5 and below scrambled to reach higher ground, with Top carrying the stragglers. Even Billy showed concern for Tatiana as power surged from her body, and she was terrified beyond belief. Shockingly, Fuuko rushed to Tatiana's side, reassuring her that everything would be okay. She apologized for having to see parts of Andy she didn't want to, but urged her to calm down. Tatiana, bewildered, questioned why they hadn't run for their lives, and reminded them that she had lost control. She tried to push Fuuko away. Fuuko refused to let go. Finally, Fuuko confessed that it was her own unluck that had ended Gina's life. Andy had been fighting to protect her. Her unluck had inadvertently killed Gina. She apologized and promised to do her best in the Union to make amends. Fuuko expressed her desire to learn more about Tatiana and hoped they could become friends. Just then, the countdown stopped, leaving everyone in shock. In the aftermath, Fuuko made an effort to be friendly with Tatiana. Although Tatiana was still upset, she warned Fuuko never to touch her plushies, which were clearly very important to her. Fuuko, understanding their significance, reassured her that she wouldn't even try. Sako, always direct, suggested they shake hands and patch things up. Tatiana quickly pointed out that she couldn't shake hands since she had to stay inside the suit. But Fuuko didn't mind. She wanted to shake the robot hand. Fuuko, ever the optimist, expressed hope that one day, when they were free of their negator powers and had normal bodies, they would be able to actually hold hands. Fuuko's kind words managed to reach Tatiana through her cold, round metal prison, and Tatiana agreed. They shook hands, and outside, the guys watched, with Billy thanking Andy. But Andy, as humble as ever, pointed out that he didn't do jack squat. Back in the present, Fuuko was ready to flee, and Chikara, who had just shown immense bravery, realized that if he released his power, he would surely die. He apologized for being useless, but it wasn't a problem, as Andy quickly got them all out of the way of the bullets. Tatiana, still under heavy fire, was reminded by Andy that their #1 priority was eliminating Unrepair. Andy wouldn't be able to back her up, but Tatiana, now deadly serious, assured him that his help wasn't needed. She urged Andy to hurry up and get to the top deck, and when he hesitated, she insisted. Tatiana thought about how, despite her horrible body, Fuuko had treated her normally, without laughter or pity. Fuuko was the first female friend she had ever made, and she refused to forgive anyone who hurt someone so special to her. Tatiana then announced the voluntary release of the UT area, and she began to glow. Elsewhere, Latla couldn't believe they were leaving empty-handed, but Unrepair revealed that he had swiped some items and promised to divide them later. Latla wondered what they would do about Creed and Fang, but Unrepair had no answer. Back in the battle, Creed did what he knew best, firing his giant gun. He noticed that a few bullets were getting through and proclaimed victory, only to realize that Tatiana had another barrier inside the suit. Desperate, Creed donned a mask and released poison gas, explaining that it would kill anyone who inhaled it within 3 minutes. At that moment, we learn more about Tatiana's ability. She is a self-targeting, compulsory activation type of negator. Born to a normal family, her life took a tragic turn on her 5th birthday when her ability manifested. Her parents were crushed to death, and the remains of their home were scattered everywhere. Dazed and confused, Tatiana fled from the authorities, only to be captured by the mafia. She was auctioned off as a negator with the ability to negate the touch of any and all things. Without her fancy suit back then, she was fed through a special tube. The auctioneer explained that since she repelled all impurities, she would make the perfect decorative ornamental piece. The bidding began, but was quickly interrupted by a barrage of bullets as a massacre unfolded, carried out by one man, Billy. Disgusted by the auction, he was almost glad to be blind. Billy tried to speak with Tatiana, but she only begged him to end her life. The little girl, scarred by her experiences, wanted to die to apologize to her parents. Billy, understanding her pain, gave her a cake bar instead of ending her life. He explained that her negator ability produced an untouchable barrier from the surface of her hair and skin, but opening her mouth created a hole in the barrier. Knowing this from a report, Billy had prepared the snacks in advance. Tatiana, still a child at heart, loved the treat and asked if he had other flavors. After that, Nico crafted her suit, which contained and compressed her barrier, that grew bigger each year. Tatiana became able to control the robot arms with her brainwaves, just as she would with actual limbs. Nico warned her that she was suppressing a tremendous force, and unleashing it could cause massive recoil, potentially becoming a weapon or a disaster. In the present moment, Tatiana's time had arrived. As Andy reached the top deck, Tatiana declared her resolve. She would rather destroy everything than allow Unrepair to escape. Her determination extended beyond just stopping Unrepair. She was committed to protecting Fuuko from any harm the others might inflict. Activating her ability, Untouchable, Tatiana unleashed a powerful barrier that instantly disintegrated Creed's arm upon contact. The barrier even began to destroy the ship, and Tatiana urged Andy to search for Unrepair. Andy credited Tatiana for making it possible. He steadied his aim and with precision fired a finger bullet in Unrepair's direction.